collective action, it can be a powerful tool. Together, the collective might of our universities and our law firms is significant. So they could choose to band together and decide to sign no agreements with Trump, to refuse to let the President of the United States dictate the terms of their speech, their business, their defense of the rule of law. And I don't want to make the victim the perpetrator. This is all Trump's fault, what he is doing to extort political loyalty from universities and law firms. But instead of there being collective action on behalf of these industries, the opposite is happening. In the legal profession, when Paul Weiss was being targeted, the other big firms didn't rise to their defense. They started making calls to Paul Weiss clients and lawyers using Trump's assault as a means to poach business or partners. That's shameful, acting like ravenous vultures, putting your profits first instead of your country's interests or the interests of the legal profession, which pledges before a court to stand up for the rule of law. Instead, these big firms are aiding and abetting the destruction of the rule of law by doing Trump's work for him, making targeted firms even more vulnerable by working behind the scenes to strip them bare for parts.
Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't just one of the worst members of Congress. She's not just one of the most corrupt members of Congress. She is also one of the most hypocritical members of Congress. And it is that hypocrisy that came out in full force when she was confronted over one of her latest scandals, one of her latest criminal scandals that we are going to get into, and the reaction she had when she was asked about the money she is making with a certain bit of insider information. We're going to cover it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Marjorie Taylor Greene being asked about this scandal, of course we need a little bit of context. And we're going to get some of that from Senator Chris Murphy right here.
So I have questions about the tariff announcements today, who benefited and who made money. And this should matter to you too, because this could be an enormous scam. What we know is that about 9:30 today, Trump posts on social media that people should buy. It's a good time to buy. And then 3 hours later, guess what? He announces that there's going to be a 90-day suspension of many of the tariffs. Predictably, the market, which had been crashing, shoots up, and anyone who made investments early today likely made a lot of money. And so the question is, who close to Trump knew that he was going to suspend the tariffs? Which of his Mar-a-Lago friends or his billionaire advisors were able to capitalize on that inside information? Why did Trump send out that post to his supporters earlier in the day? The bottom line is that the chaotic nature of this tariff policy, with Trump's position changing every single hour, gives ample opportunity for any individual who has early access to information about the White House's change in position to make boatloads of money, either by investing at the right time or pulling their money out of the market at the right time. This entire White House is one giant grift. Donald Trump and his friends are in power in order to use their access to government to make money. It stinks, and we should get to the bottom of it.
There are only so many explanations for Donald Trump's tariffs. The first one is, of course, that he is a weak and insecure man pretending that he's strong. So he wants to say, look, I'm so big and tough I can intimidate other countries, even though he can't. The other explanation, of course, is that he's stupid, with the third explanation being insider trading. It's very possible that Donald Trump is skewing the markets up and down so his billionaire buddies can get even richer off their stock buybacks. That is a completely logical explanation, and it would make sense with the stock purchasing that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been doing recently, and Hakeem Jeffries talked about the need for an investigation of that in this clip right here.
To get to the bottom of the possible stock manipulation that is unfolding before the American people, including what, if any, advanced knowledge did members of the House Republican Conference have of Trump's decision to pause the reckless tariffs that he put into place? There are several members of Congress who will be aggressively demanding answers and transparency, particularly as it relates to stock purchase decisions that may have occurred over the last few days.
Yes, we need to get to the bottom of this. The fact that members of Congress are able to trade individual stocks still is absolutely absurd. The way Marjorie Taylor Greene did it is the perfect explanation of why it needs to be banned. So, before we get into her being asked about that, let's first take a look at an article explaining what she did. Marjorie Taylor Greene faces insider trading probe calls over stock buys. Democrats are calling for an investigation into Marjorie Taylor Greene's purchase of stocks during the recent market dip, following President Donald Trump's announcement of sweeping global tariffs on April 2nd. On Thursday, Texas Democrat Greg Kasar said, "We need an investigation into insider trading by people like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. We need an investigation into whether any K Street lobbyists or other big firms were tipped off by Donald Trump's actions." When contacted for comment, a representative of Greene called the implication that a probe would be launched into that matter utterly absurd. Now, of course, that was only a staffer of Marjorie Taylor Greene who was asked about her corruption. What happened when Marjorie Taylor Greene was asked about how so many members of Congress get rich when they become elected officials?
How do people go to Congress and become multimillionaires in a few years on a $175,000 salary? Mr. Walter, I do not know. I haven't found that money tree up there in Washington or printing machine that they all seem to have. It's amazing, truly amazing. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi, I tell you what, supposedly she has some great stock tips. Y'all should check her out.
Now, of course, that question very clearly hits on Marjorie Taylor Greene's insider trading scandal. But unfortunately, it could be applied to so many members of Congress. The response from Marjorie Taylor Greene, though after her blatant insider trading is so ridiculous. "Oh, you don't really know. Ooh, so many millionaires." Marjorie Taylor Greene went to Congress as a millionaire, though, by the way, from a business handed down by her father. This is someone who talks about meritocracy and DEI, but she got a handout from daddy and she's acting like she's not a Nepo baby, and that's how she made all her money. Just absolute nonsense from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Again, especially because of the blatant nature she was committing this insider trading. It couldn't be clearer. And we've seen it from Marjorie Taylor Greene before. We talked about this in a previous video. After she became the chairwoman of the DOGE subcommittee, she bought up tens of thousands of dollars worth of Tesla stock. I'm only laughing because afterwards it absolutely plummeted. Goes to show Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't smart enough to even commit insider trading. Even when she has the insider knowledge, she can't be successful. But obviously, this example with Trump was too easy for even a like Marjorie Taylor Greene to screw up. It was blatant. It was clear. It is why we need an investigation into this. And of course, the corruption doesn't just stop there. Senator Chris Murphy did an even deeper dive into Donald Trump's attacks on our democracy, our institutions, our government at large, the complete corruption in his administration. In this clip right here.
But collective action, it can be a powerful tool. Together, the collective might of our universities and our law firms is significant. So they could choose to band together and decide to sign no agreements with Trump, to refuse to let the President of the United States dictate the terms of their speech, their business, their defense of the rule of law. And I don't want to make the victim the perpetrator. This is all Trump's fault, what he is doing to extort political loyalty from universities and law firms. But instead of there being collective action on behalf of these industries, the opposite is happening. In the legal profession, when Paul Weiss was being targeted, the other big firms didn't rise to their defense. They started making calls to Paul Weiss clients and lawyers using Trump's assault as a means to poach business or partners. That's shameful, acting like ravenous vultures, putting your profits first instead of your country's interests or the interests of the legal profession, which pledges before a court to stand up for the rule of law. Instead, these big firms are aiding and abetting the destruction of the rule of law by doing Trump's work for him, making targeted firms even more vulnerable by working behind the scenes to strip them bare for parts. There are good, patriotic lawyers at many of these high-priced firms who know that this is wrong, and they should speak up. Some of them already have. And now, finally, Trump is coming for the rest of the private sector. Listen, I have no idea what the Trump tariff policy is. The constantly shifting positions of the last week, they're an embarrassment. It's complete incompetent malpractice. It's jeopardized jobs and retirement savings and college funds all across this country. But the tariffs are complicated and convoluting and hard to understand, likely because they aren't actually economic or trade policy. They're a political tool. This one, designed to force every major company to come before Trump to plead for tariff relief in exchange for giving Trump the company's political loyalty. No different than what's happening in the legal profession or in America's universities. A tariff can be written very easily to favor one industry over another or one company over another. And the confusing nature of the tariff regime is a means for Trump to require every major company in the country to come on bended knee to him to get the relief they need. And that loyalty pledge could be anything: the purchase of some Trump crypto coin, public support for Trump's economic policies, donations to his political campaign. But having watched what Trump has done one by one to universities and law firms, why would we assume the tariffs aren't just simply a tool to do the same thing to big companies? So what I'm trying to say here is that you don't need a battle royale between the president and the Supreme Court for democracy to die. If journalists are constantly looking over their shoulder and unable to report on the truth, if protest is suppressed, even moderately, at universities, if lawyers start giving cover instead of uncovering corruption and illegality in the regime, if companies start being mouthpieces for the regime as a price of doing business, if all that happens, then we are not a real democracy anymore. We are a fake democracy. Elections still happen, like in Turkey, like in Hungary, like in Venezuela, but the rules are going to be tilted, and dissent will be suppressed so much that the same side, Trump's side, wins over and over and over. And this should matter not just to Democrats, not just to members of the minority party. This should matter to Republicans as well. We swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. And it is time for us to see the game that is being played. The good news is that the rules have not been fully rigged yet. There is still time, not loads of it, but there is still time for this body to set a tone that causes the kind of massive public outrage necessary to stop this campaign of destruction in its tracks. But that requires those of us who believe that the threat to democracy is urgent to act like it. That means saying to our Republican colleagues that we're not going to act like business as usual, that we're not going to proceed to legislation unless we have agreement, Republicans and Democrats, to stop this assault on free speech and dissent. It requires the minority party to say that right now. Only if we come together are we going to have a chance to save ourselves from the fate that has befallen so many other countries that have slowly, too quietly, seen their countries transition from real democracy to fake democracy.
The corruption in Donald Trump's administration couldn't be clearer. Chris Murphy outlines it all, and that clip could go on for hours, as Cory Booker did, about all of the corruption, the criminality, the attacks on our democracy happening all of the time in Donald Trump's administration. But it is our job to shed light on them. It is our job to point them out. It is our job to talk about them every single day, while also offering up an aspirational vision of what our government can be, that we should ban stock trading. Senator Jon Ossoff, who is running for re-election right now, in 2021 when he just got into the Senate, introduced this bill. It is bipartisan. It should have happened a long time ago. This is the type of stuff that we need to, as Democrats, be talking about all the time. It's what we're going to be talking about on this show, certainly. And if you want to support that, as always, You can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you.